Well, the White House is billing it as a social media summit to fight for press freedom and against political bias on such platforms as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Critics charge today's event, though, is lending legitimacy to the kind of conspiracy mongers and far-right extremists who at times have found themselves banned from those social media platforms. President Trump himself tweeting today, a big subject today at the White House Social Media Summit will be the tremendous dishonesty, bias, discrimination, and suppression practiced by certain companies. We will not let them get away with it much longer. Well, joining us from Washington is Ali Breland. He's a tech and internet reporter for Mother Jones magazine or media outlet. But first, let us go to our senior correspondent in Washington, Dan Raviv. Dan, tell us a little about this. We know social media is certainly a subject close to President Trump's heart.
He believes that one reason for his victory in 2016 was that the social media, lots of websites absolutely were in love with his unique, unconventional message. At the same time, he's been saying in recent months, as have other leading Republicans, that big companies like Twitter and Facebook are biased against conservatives. There's a claim from conservatives, I heard it again this week from some of the top conservatives in Congress, who said, boy, they're glad that the White House will have this meeting. They hope that congressional hearings will lead to breaking up mammoth companies like Facebook and Google because of the claim that they make it hard for conservatives to get out their message. And yet, of course, the message does get out, and some of the leading bloggers, the people whom President Trump really likes, and they like him, they're the ones who'll be at the White House starting at about 3 p.m. Eastern time. He'll address them at 3:45, and only now did we find out that the major media can be there. Therefore, we'll probably see President Trump's speech. I want to tell you how we found out a little more from the president's tweet. He said that the fake news media will also be there, but for a limited period. The fake news media, he said, not as important as social media. So he's trying to ride the wave of what he considers conservative media by celebrating them on this day, Kalev.
Well, Ali, President Trump framing this as a free press issue, a First Amendment issue. Does he have a case there?
People on the right think that he does. Like you said, a lot of Republicans, especially in Congress, have made the same case. But I mean, there's not really any clear evidence that he or anyone else has produced. All the examples of this that Republicans have produced have been isolated anecdotes. And for each of those anecdotes, there's a case where the left has been censored as well. And also, all of the people that he's invited, all of these social media posters who have been censored, have really large followings. Some of them have Twitter followings in the hundreds of thousands. I think that you can make the case that there's censorship going on. You know, these companies are really bad at doing it, given how far the reach of Donald Trump and everyone else is who uses these platforms, who claims to be censored.
Right, Ali, there is a bigger issue here, not only just on people of the right. It's whether these social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook, of course, they're private companies, but are they essentially media companies that should be regulated in the way, for example, the FCC does? Or are we talking about something entirely different that should be left to the open market to determine?
That is a really good and important question for lawmakers on all sides of the aisle to interrogate and try to figure out, because when those laws were created to protect technology companies, they were much more nascent, they were much more vulnerable, and so it was a different time, and it made sense to protect them and make them less legally liable. Things are different now, so it's important that people kind of go in and see what's going on. Senator Ron Wyden, who originally helped create these rules and spearheaded them, said that he thinks that they should still exist to make it so that companies can really enforce their measures in an interesting way without getting sued all the time. And so I think that still has to be debated out. People don't really know, and people are only now starting to figure it out, but it's something that is definitely worth scrutiny.
And I just want to ask you, we do see a phenomena also both on the left and the right. President Trump, the Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio, banning people from their Twitter feed. The court's getting involved in that. Is that something that also should be some kind of legal issue?
Yeah, no, it definitely should. I think that, you know, the courts have spoken on President Donald Trump finally, you know, whether or not he can do that. And that's something that we should probably figure out as a society, and that the government should figure out. It's interesting that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez chose to do that, just given that after the decision on Trump's case. But I'm curious to see how that shakes out. But it's an issue that, you know, whether or not politicians should have, or people should have access to the politicians that they follow. And it seems like the courts are moving in the right direction on that.
What about that, Dan? That's a curious link between President Trump and Representative Ocasio-Cortez, is they both seem to feel that's their territory. They own that Twitter space.
That Democratic representative apparently feels like she's more of a normal person. After all, those are the rules on Twitter. If you don't want someone to follow you because they keep replying with all sorts of annoying things, you have the right to block that person. That must seem familiar to Facebook users as well. Blocking. So the the ordinary individual wants to have that right, that their Twitter stream or Facebook page won't be taken over by all sorts of people they hate. But the ruling was that the president of the United States can't do that because when he tweets, that's information to the people of America, so he can't block any of them. Apparently, the Congresswoman didn't realize that she now has a greater official responsibility if there will be a court ruling against her, perhaps, at some point, Kalev.